Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're continuing with Nazir, Daf Dalid, number 4. Great share for you today. We'll talk about Nazir Shimshon, Nazir Olam, all the Naziris that you might want to take upon yourself. We'll detail them, we'll give you options so you can choose the best Naziris for yourself. Let's get started. We left off towards the top of Dalam and Aleph. And it's about 12 lines down. Ibayasema, this is the first word of the line. It's about 12, 13 lines down. Ibayasema, Reb Shimon Leisle Isser Chalal Isser. Right, we were trying to figure out the psukim. This all started off with a Mishnah on Daf Gimel, where we had a machlokes between Reb Shimon and the Rabbanan. Do you have to take upon yourself all, right? Obviously, you say Harini Nazir, you're a complete Nazir. But if you say Harini Nazir min Chartzanim, right, from grape seeds, or Hazag, or from grape peels, or you just say Harini Nazir, that I'm going to grow my hair long, or something like that. So, according to Reb Shimon, it's not effective for Nazir. So you have to take the complete Nazir upon yourself. It's all or nothing. And according to the Rabbanan, even if you mention one of the things, just Yayin, or you mention that you're not going to be Tamal Mason, that not effectively creates a complete Nazirus, right? Taking a partial Nazirus equals a complete Nazirus. According to Shimon, you have to specifically take upon yourself all the things in Nazirus, or else you're not a Nazir at all. So, both opinions brought psukim for their, right? Rab Shimon says, Mecharsanim Adak, and the Rabbanan said, Mi'ayin V'Sheichar, it's an extra pasuk. And we were dealing with yesterday how the different opinions, Rab Shimon and the Rabbanan will deal with the pasuk Mi'ayin V'Sheichar, Yayin. Right, it says wine in a different place, and this is yayin v'sheichar, which are two extra things. So you learn yayin for one thing, and sheichar, which article translates as aged wine. I translate anything intoxicating. A beer is normally called sheichar. So yesterday we said, according to Reb Shimon, we were left with why does it say sheichar according to Reb Shimon? So the first answer, the Gemara says that it's needed to say sheichar to teach you that a Gzeira Shava, just like it says Sheichar by Nazir, it also says Sheichar when it comes to the sons of Aaron, right, Kohanim, when they go into the Heichal, in the base of Mikdash, if they're intoxicated, they're Chayiv Kares, they're Chayiv Misa. Now, we brought the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, which says that even if you ate figs, fermented figs, which intoxicate, even though it's not wine, Sheichar comes to tell you anything which intoxicates you, you're Chayiv for going into the Mikdash. And that's what Reb Shimon holds. Reb Shimon holds not that way. And he says, just like Sheichar by Nazir, it has to be specifically wine. So therefore, not like Rabbi Yehuda, Sheichar has to be only wine when it comes to Kohanim going to the base of Mikdash. Let's start the Gemara. A different answer for Reb Shimon. What does he do with the word Sheichar? Reb Shimon Leisla Isser Chal Isser. He doesn't hold of Isser Chal Isser. The sign of Reb Shimon Omer Elchel Nevela B'Yom Kippur and Potter. Right, this is a general machlokes, whether Isser Chal Isser, you have two Isurim. For example, Yom Kippur comes, and an animal dies on Yom Kippur, so now it's Nevela. Nevela you can't eat. It's an Isser in the Torah to eat Nevela. It's also Asr eat on Yom Kippur. So, when you have two Isurim, right, do you get malchus for eating Nevela, right? For eating on Yom Kippur, you get kares, right? Eating Nevela, you get malchus, but you can't get chayiv malchus because you're already chayiv for Yom Kippur. It's not chal, the second insert on top of it. So, so that's why it says sheichar. The sign Rishon Omer Elchel Nevela Yom Kippur and Pater. So therefore it says sheichar. Why does it say sheichar according to Reb Shimon? That even though normally in Isra Chal Isra, when it comes to Nazirus, right? Like we said yesterday, Yain Asr, Yain Mitzvah, Yain Rishus, right? Just like the case of Rava, right? Rava says, Shvua, that I'm going to drink wine. And then right after you say, Shvua, I'm going to drink wine, you say, I'm going to become a Nazir. So the Nazirus prohibits you from fulfilling your Shvua. So we said that was from Yain, we learned that. But according to Reb Shimon, who normally holds an Isra Chal Isra, right? So, I'm going to take that back for a second. For example, if you took a shvua that you're not going to drink wine, and then you became a Nazir, so the Isser of Nazir says chal on that, and potentially you be chayav I guess, 2 sets of malchus, even though normally ain't chal isser, over here it's chal isser, or you had a different isser of wine. Let's say the yain was yain nesach or something like that, where it was an isser of odazara. Yain nesach was usher to get even benefit from, and then you took a nazirus and you drank the yain nesach. Not only were you chayiv for yain nesach, which potentially is, if you drink yain nesach, is an isser in the Torah, but also you be chayiv for violating your nazirus. That's what Sheikhar teaches you. So, well, Rabbanan who holds, right, normally Isser is Chal Isser. What did they do originally with Rosh Shimon's pasuk? Rosh Shimon says, right, the pasuk says, and it says, Bizagvad Chartzanim. Right, so he learns, Rosh Shimon learns Zagvad Chartzanim. He mentions both Zag and Chartzanim. Tell you have to take everything. You have to include, you can't just say, I already Nazir Medach Chartzanim, and then it includes everything. You have to say, if you're going to say parts of the zeros, you have to say everything. What do they do with that? You don't need to do that. To tell you, Zaga Katanim tells me that even if you had, right, the shear for eating grape peels and grape seeds, it happens to be a revius, the Gemara says. All the shear is revius measured by drinking wine, the Gemara in Sukkah says. So to mitzvah for shear revius, we learned in Shulchan Aruch Yomi that revius is basically 3 kazesim, right? 2 kazesim is like a beitza, and a revius is a beitza of a chetzi, 1.5 beitzas, 1.5 eggs. So therefore you have to eat 3 kazesim, but they join together, meaning if you eat together 1 kazayas of grape seeds and 2 kazesim of grape peels, it joins together. That's Charzana Mazag, a different halacha. Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon, where does he know that from? He doesn't hold of Sirah. The Zion Rabbi Shimon, Omer, Kol Shul Malkus. Even though normally, according to the Rabbanan, for Isurei Achila, things you can't eat, like dam and nevela and things like that, if you eat a kazayas, right, you're chayiv. According to Shimon, even a little bit of dam, of blood, makes you chayiv, or nevela, makes you chayiv a korban. Or you eat something which is, nosar or something, pigul or things like that. So, even if you eat a little bit, even a tiny amount, you're chayiv malchus. Lamru kazayas is a korban. The whole reason they said about kazayas is only to chayiv you a korban. According to Shimon, there's no idea of mitzarif, right? The zag and the chartan, because there's no shear. Even the shear kolshu would violate your nazirus and get malchus for nazirus. We'll talk more about malchus for nazirus in the coming daf. And the Mishnah says, "Harinik Shimshon kivei manoach." You say you're like Shimshon. If you remember from the Navi, Shimshon was promised to his parents. They had a fiery angel came and told his parents, "You're going to have a son, and he should be a Nazir." The Malach told him he should be a Nazir. Mibete, from his mother's womb, he was already a Nazir, and he had to be knowing for the entire life. And that's called Nazir Shimshon. Right? Apparently, you can take that upon yourself. We'll discuss if you really can take it upon yourself. It's Malchus Tanoim. So you want to become like Shimshon. Kibem Manoach. Manoach was his father. Kibal Delilah. His wife was Delilah. Kamisha Akar Lasso Zaza. One of the feats, he had tremendous strength, Shimshon, and he uprooted the doors in Gaza, which now is Gaza. Right, the same thing. The Plishtim still have problems. The Plishtim and the Palestinians. Kimisha Nekro Plishtim as Einav. Right, he ended up dying. Delilah tricked him, cut his hair, and weakened him. And he asked when he died, they were poking at his eyes, and he collapsed the building. But they poked at his eyes. I already said Nazir Shimshon. That makes you a Nazir Shimshon. The Gemara says, "Lama the Misnik Kol Halin." Why did he say all these things? It sounds like from the Mishnah you have to actually say all of these things, not just either one, right? It says Shimshon, Kibem Noah, Baal Delilah, Shmachid Lazaz Aza, Shinekru Blashim. 5 things. It sounds like you have to mention all of them together to become Nazir Shimshon. So the Gemara says, "Di'amar Harinik is Shimshon." If you just said, "I'm like Shimshon," Havamina Shimshon Achrina, right? There's other people with the name Shimshon. Shimshon is still a popular name, not so popular. There's even a luggage company, the most famous luggage company in the world, Samsonite, which is named after Shimshon. It was a Jewish person founded that company in Denver, I believe, and he named it Samsonite after, because carry luggage, you got to be pretty strong. Havamina Shimshon Achrina, Kamash Malan, Kibei Manoach. Therefore, it's by Manoach. They have to say Shimshon, the son of Manoach, because there's only one Shimshon by Manoach. We just said Shimshon, the son of Manoach. Maybe, most people are not Shimshon, or their father, Manoach. Manoach's not such a common name. But maybe there is such a thing. That's why you have to say at least three of them. Shimshon, Manoach, and Baal Delila. So basically, the halacha is, it seems from the art scroll, it seems from the poskim, that if you want to become another Shimshon, you have to say, Harini Shimshon, Kibbe Manoach, and one of the other three things, either Kabal Delila, or Kamisha Akud Lasas Azar, or Kamisha Nekro Plishtim Esainav, right? The first two and one of the last three. And that is clear that you want to become another Shimshon. The Mishnah says, Ma Bein Nazir Olam and Nazir Shimshon. What's the difference in Nazir Olam? I was going to ask, we didn't talk about Nazir Olam. We'll talk about this in a second. Nazir Olam is really someone, he's 20 years old. He says, I want to be a Nazir forever, right? What's the difference in a Nazir Olam and Nazir Shimshon? Nazir Shimshon, right? You're a Nazir also forever. Could even be a Nazir Shimshon in your mother's womb. So, what's the difference between a Nazir Olam, Hichbit Saro, Mekel Batar, maybe Shalosh Behemos? If you're a Nazir forever, if your hair gets too heavy, right? Sometimes it's hard to have a long hair, so, it's burdensome. So, you could cut your hair when it gets very long, maybe Shalosh Behemos. And it's like the end of your Nazir. If we're going to learn the end of your Nazir is you bring three karbanos. You bring a karban chatas, a karban ola, and a karban shlamim. So you bring the three karbanos like you finished your Nazir spitara, and then you just continue your Nazir. So you have nitma, maybe karban tuma. If you're Nazir olam and you become tameh, you bring a karban tuma just like a regular Nazir would bring, which is basically two birds and a karban asham. Nazir shimshon, if you're Nazir shimshon, hikbet saro in a mekel. The nitma ain't maybe karban. Nazir shimshon has a chumrah. You're never allowed to cut your hair. Like Shimshon was never allowed to cut his hair. He faced dire consequences of Delilah cut his hair. The nitma ain't maybe karban tuma. If he becomes tummy, he doesn't have to bring a karban tuma. The Gemara is going to say is not really if he becomes tummy. He's allowed to become tummy. Shimshon was metame lameis. He killed a lot of plishtim. He became tummy. So even though Nazir Shimshon is more machmir, but only the two are the main isurim. He can't drink wine and he can't cut his hair, but he could be metame lamesim. The Gemara says Nazir olam man dechar shmei. The Mishnah compared Nazir Olam to Nazir Shimshon. Who talked? We never talked about Nazir Olam. Let's mention it first. Chasur Master of Achi Gesani. Where it says really it was omitted unintentionally in the beginning of the Mishnah. Really, what it should say in the Mishnah. Omer already Nazir Olam. How do you say Nazir Olam? If you're a Nazir, say I'm a Nazir forever. You become a Nazir forever. Maybe Nazir Olam, Nazir Shimshon. What's the practical difference? Nazir Olam, Nazir Shimshon. Both of them you're accepting Nazir for the rest of your life. Nazir Olam, Hichbit Saro, Mekel Batar, maybe Shalosh Behemos, maybe Nitba, maybe Karban Tuma, like we said in the Mishnah. He could cut his hair, and when he cuts his hair, he brings like the three karbanos, like he finishes the Naziros, and then he continues. Nazir Shimshon, Hichbit Saro, and Mekel Batar. There's no kula. Nazir Shimshon ever cutting his hair, ever lightening his hair. The Alam with Beis on the top. Ve'eno maybe Karban Tuma. Ve'eno maybe Karban Tuma. Doesn't bring a Karban Tuma. So the Gemara immediately questions Karban who's lo ma'isi. He doesn't bring a Karban if he becomes Tamei. Al Nazir is Chal al that. But the Nazir is Chal, meaning presumably even that he's not allowed to become Tamei. Mani Masisen. Who is our Mishnah Fal? Like Lolo Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon. Not like either of the two opinions that are recorded about Nazir Shimshon. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer Nazir Shimshon Mutal Tamei the Mason. Yehuda says even the Chadchila, you keep time on the Mason. Shekem Hatzidu B'Shimshon himself, Shenitma. He purposely killed Plishtim and became Tamei. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shimon says, Omer Nazir Shimshon Omer Klum. Shimon doesn't hold to the concept of Nazir Shimshon. You can't take Nazir Shimshon because Nazir Shimshon was once in history, right, where the Malach came and told him, Mibeten, from the mother's womb is another. It really never, you can't do it again. Shalom Hatzinu Shimshon, Shiatzas Nazir Mipiv. No one ever proclaimed that he's going to be a Nazir Shimshon. No, even his father didn't say Nazir Shimshon. The Malach told him, you should be a Nazir. His father didn't even declare his son a Nazir. So Mani, who is our Mishnah Fal? Rabbi Yehuda Amar Afila Chadchila. Right, our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, even the Chadchila can be Tamei L'Meisen. Masisa Katani Im Nitma. Our Mishnah says, if he becomes Tamei, which sounds like with the Evet, if he became Tamei, but Chadchila is not allowed to be Tamei himself. Here, Rabbi Shimon Amar Lo Chayla Nazir's Klal. According to Shimon, no such thing as Nazir Shimshon. L'olam nowadays. L'olam Rabbi Yehuda. Obviously, the Sarah Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, that it exists, the concept of Nazir Shimshon. But I did the Tani Gabi Nazir Olam Im Nitma, right? Even though, so since we're talking about comparison between Nazir Olam and Nazir Shimshon, and Nazir Olam, he's not allowed to Tam himself. So it says Im Nitma. Tani Nami Gabi Nazir Shimshon Im Nitma. So therefore, to have the same language, They have symmetry between the first part of the Mishnah and the second part of the Mishnah. We wrote Im Nitma. Even though the Chachila is allowed to tam himself. Say the machlokes over whether there could be a Nazir Shimshon is really reflective. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda's machlokes about that is reflective of a different machlokes. We had him in the Darim. This nan harei like b'chor. I believe this is actually a brisa. If you say I'm like a b'chor, maybe it's actually Mishnah Mesachas Desanya, right? I was right. It's a brisa quoted in Mesachas Darim. I believe on the Yud Beis or something like that, or Yud Gimel. Harei b'chor. You take a neder, right? This meat is usher to meat like the meat of a b'chor. Rabbi Yaakov says, right? We learned that concept of hatfasa by Nedarim. Hatfasa basically means that you compare what you don't want to eat to something which is a korban, something that is a korban. So you transfer, or you don't really transfer. You just ascribe the kedusha of the korban, which is usher to benefit from, to the meat also. Rabbi Yaakov says it works. Rabbi Yossi Matir, right? If you say like a regular korban, like a korban ola or something like that, so you're makdish that korban. B'chor, the difference between b'chor or other korbanos is b'chor, right when it's born, it gets kedusha. No one's makdish the korban. A korban that I'm designated as an olas nedava, as an ola to the base of Mikdash, or a chatas, we'll see. So I am makdish that korban. B'chor is different. Rabbi Yaakov says, nonetheless, it becomes aser. Rabbi Yossi Matir, Yossi says, you can't be matfis with a b'chor. My love, Rabbi Yehuda savar, what's the machlokas? Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Yaakov. He holds like Rabbi Yaakov that Nazir Shimshon does exist, right? You can say like Nazir Shimshon, even though a b'chor no one ever uttered from their mouth that it's kadosh like a b'chor. Same thing by Nazir Shimshon, even though no one ever uttered Nazir Shimshon, but the concept exists, Nazir Shimshon. The Amar Lo Ba'ina Davar Neither. You don't have to connect something to something which was previously designated as hektish. Rabbi Shimon Savar like Rabbi Yossi, he holds like Rabbi Yossi. It's just like a b'chor, no one's ever makdish the b'chor. Same thing with Nazir Shimshon. It doesn't exist. The Amar B'ina Davar Hanidar. You need someone consecrated with their mouths. Another Shimshon we never found that someone consecrated with their mouths. Some guys are low. You can't really compare the two machlokas. The Amar B'ina Davar Hanidar. Everyone agrees. Both Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yaakov agree that you need Davar Hanidar. Yeah, by hatfasa. V'shani gabi b'chor. B'chor is different. Nechsiv laHashem. It's an extra pasuk. It's a laHashem. L'rabos is a b'chor. Even though normally when you're making a neder, you want to compare something to a korban, which you're makdish with your mouth. There's a difference when it comes to by nedarim, by bringing korbanos, because a b'chor is laHashem. So b'chor is considered davar hanidar, even though it's not davar hanidar, but it's like that. Rabbi Yossi Amar Lecha. What does he do with the pasuk laHashem? Hu laHashem ibayil lechad rabos chatas v'asham. Right, chatas v'asham are different than a korban nedava. When you're a makdish a korban nedava, right, you ascribe kedusha to it. A chatas v'asham, you can only make something a chatas v'asham after you sinned, right? If you didn't sin, you can't be makdish it. So to tell you that also is considered a davar hanidar, that you, right, after I sin and do malacha on Shabbos b'shogeg, so I ascribe kedusha to a behema, an animal, and call it a chatas, right? So that is called the davar nidar, according to Rabbi Yossi. Why does he include chatas v'asham and not b'chor? Even though you need something to happen first, you need to sin first. Nonetheless, at the end of the day, you're matfis b'neder. You're the one who makdish the animals of chatas or an asham. A b'chor you never actually makdish a b'chor once it's the firstborn animal from its mother's womb. So then it's kadosh. Rabbi Yaakov would say, there is a concept, right, that you're being makdish it. Who the Sanya? We learned shall base Rabbeinu Amru in Rebbe's house. They used to say, the Bechor is born in his flock. Mitzvah level lakdisha, even though he doesn't have to. You're supposed to, when it's born, lakdisha or hazachar takdish. You're supposed to say this is a Bechor, even though really the kedusha is me'elav. It happens by itself. There's still a mitzvah to say it. Rabbi Yossi would say, the mitzvah lakdisha, if you, really l'chadchila, you're right. Rabbi said the mitzvah is right zachar takdish. You should say that it's kadosh. Ilo makdish le milo kadosh. If he's not makdish, it is not kadosh. Of course, it's kadosh. It's not dependent on whether you say it or not. So Gabi Nazir Nami Eksiv. The Gemara says, fine. So it was because Rabbi Yaakov said it's his last Shem over there. By Nazir also says Nami Eksiv last Shem. So why does Reb Shimon not say there's a concept of Nazir Shimshon? Why is it no concept of Nazir Shimshon? It says La Hashem. Hashem is needed for something else. For a story also recorded in Masechet Nadar. Amar Shimon Tzadik. Shimon Tzadik was a big Tana. Even though he was a Kohen, apparently, he would never eat from a korban asham. That, when a Nazir takes Nazirus upon himself and then becomes Tameh, he has to start counting over again. He also has to bring an asham and 2 birds. So he wouldn't eat from an asham and Tameh. He didn't like the concept of people making themselves Nazir, accepting upon themselves Naziros. Chutz ma'adam echad, except for one case. He came from the south part of Eretz Yisrael. He had beautiful eyes, beautiful blue eyes, with tov roi, and he was very handsome. His hair was very long and curly. Amarti lo b'ni, why are you destroying your beautiful hair? Now, the way the article says is that he accepted the Nazirus upon himself, and he's destroying his hair by, after the Nazirus is completed, he's cutting his hair. That's not the simple explanation over here. Simple explanation is that now, while he's in the middle of his Nazirus, his hair is long and disgusting. We're going to talk about this. What really, in Ian with Ben Sion, what is the concept of Nazirus? Is Nazirus to make yourself better or to make yourself disgusting? We'll talk about that based on the article explanation and my explanation, 2 different explanations. So, Amr Li, he said, what happened? I was a shepherd to my father in his city. I went to draw water from the spring. I saw in the gathered water, I saw a reflection of myself. Apparently, I didn't have mirrors back then. Yetzer Hara got armed up against him. He wanted to be gaivadik. He wanted to, I'm good looking. He wanted to go modeling, right? Why are you so arrogant in a world that doesn't belong to you? You're going to end up being worm and maggot, fodder to worm and maggot. He said, I'm going to cut my hair off. I'm going to accept Nazirus upon himself, and then I'm going to, at the end of your Nazirus, you shave your head. When I heard this, or Shimon HaTzadik heard this, I cast him on his head. Even though Nazirus is not a good thing, just like Nadarim is not a good thing, this type of Nazirus is good. He's doing it primarily to service Hashem, so that's what he uses Hashem for. Shimshon wasn't a Nazir, right? Meaning Shimshon, there was no one who declared him a Nazir. It was makdish him as a Nazir. The Malach told Manoach, right, that he should be a Nazir. Presumably Manoach listened to him and said he was a Nazir. The Malach told him, but he didn't ask Manoach to actually say that he was a Nazir. So there was no consecration when he was a Nazir. Right? According to Rabbi Yehuda, right, he can be Metamel Mason because Shimshon was Metamel Mason, but as Shimshon, how do you know you could do it? Even Shimshon proclaimed, with the jawbone of a donkey, I killed 1,000 men, right? Presumably he killed them. He was next to them. He touched them. Maybe he threw the jawbone at him. He's a marksman. He could have been a baseball pitcher. Velonago, he didn't actually kill him. He didn't actually touch them. Ela Mahacha, a different passage. He hit 60 Palestinians, 30 Palestinians, and he took their clothes. If you take their clothes, it's very hard to take someone's off clothes without touching them. The Gemara says, maybe first he hit them, first he took off their clothes, and then he hit them and killed them. The Gemara says, it says first he hit them, and then it says he took them off. Maybe he hit them, and they were on the brink, they were in critical condition. They were about to die. And then he took it off, their clothes, while they were still alive. Even though it's not conclusive from the pasuk that they were dead, it's a tradition that we have that when it says Vayach, he killed them first and then he took off their clothes. So obviously he touched the dead people. So if you see that he touched it, it's obviously another Shimshon is allowed to be Tamal Mesim. We'll leave off here. Tomorrow we'll discuss Nazir Olam and compare it to Nazir Shimshon. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Sion, where I want to discuss an important thing. We're talking about Nazir. What is the concept of Nazirus? What is the philosophy behind Nazirus? The article seems to say one thing. I have a different explanation, the opposite of the article. Stay tuned. Ian with Ben Sion coming up next.